Welcome to Podcasting for Latina CEOs, the go-to podcast for passionpreneurs Latinas ready to launch and grow their online businesses and own their voice with podcasting. I'm Heidi de la Cruz, writer, two-time award-winning podcaster, and podcast launch coach on a mission to help you build a life of freedom, wealth, and impact by turning your ideas into income. If you're a Latina ready to break generational cycles and create your own table, this show is for you. Let's build our dreams juntas. Con amor, Coach Heidi. Hello and welcome back to Podcasting for Latina CEOs. I am your host and your coach, Heidi de la Cruz. And how did you like the episode about the voice method? Right? Super simple, straight to the point. You have your 6-week roadmap to launching your podcast, taking your podcast from idea to launch. Super simple, straightforward, no gatekeeping. All right. So today I actually want to get into more details on the implement week or week 3, which is the I in voice. And I want to talk about hosting sites. So a podcast hosting site, what it is, what are the different ones, and I want to share a little bit of details also on my experience on the ones that I've used for clients and for myself. Okay, so let's get started. All right, so first is answering the question is, what is a podcast hosting site? Okay, so when you think of podcasting, you think about like where you listen to podcasts, right? Which is on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I think Podbean is one. Like there's many different ways that you can listen to podcasts, but this is not a podcast hosting site. That's different, right? A podcast hosting site is literally where your podcast lives. So think of it like a website, right? So in order to have a website, you have to have a website host where where your blog or your website lives, right? So there's WordPress, there's Squarespace, there is GoDaddy, right? There's different ones. So a podcast hosting site is very similar to that. It literally is where you host your podcast, where your podcast lives. It's where you will upload your podcast episodes, so like the file. It's also where you will upload the show notes and also where you will upload the cover art for the episode if you are going to change it. If you're going to have it different from the cover art of your overall podcast, that's where you'll upload it. And that is also where you will write the title of your podcast. And the podcast hosting site will then distribute your podcast to Apple, to Spotify, if you upload your RSS feed to YouTube, it will distribute it to YouTube as well. So this is where your podcast lives and where it gets distributed. So your listeners can listen to your podcast. Now, speaking of RSS feed stands for really simple syndication. And it's literally a URL that is unique to your show. And that is what distributes your episodes and your shows to Apple and Spotify and so on and so forth. Each podcast hosting site will have an RSS feed. So whichever one you decide to go with, an RSS feed will be distributed or will be created for your show. Now, let's say, for example, you want to start your show on Spotify or like hosting it on Spotify. The RSS feed will be created there, right? But if you want to change to hosting it on Buzzsprout or Podbean or Simplecast, you will then take your RSS feed and put it in the new podcast hosting site. So then that will be your new site. Okay. So you're not going to have multiple RSS feed. It's only going to be one. Okay. Hopefully I didn't lose you. It's all these things that, work in the back end of your podcast. But really what you need to know is you will have one RSS feed for your show, and whichever podcast hosting site you choose, your RSS feed will be created and that will be it for your show. Okay. So, why do you need this? So, like I mentioned, it's kind of like a personal website, right? It is to distribute your show, it's to handle, to put all the bandwidth together. This is also where you will see all your analytics, your downloads, who's listening, how many people are listening, where are they listening from. All of that data is collected through your podcast hosting sites. And there are a lot of podcast hosting sites out there. So I always tell my clients to do your research on all the different ones that are out there. Check out the features that they offer. Check out the prices that they all offer because not all of them are free. I think right now the only free one is Spotify for creators. And yeah, I think that's the only free one. I don't know. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. But you definitely want to look at the pricing and see what you can afford, what features come in it, so then you can definitely choose what you need for your show. So, for example, Spotify for creators has the video capability like YouTube. So people can watch, if you decide to do video on your podcast, they can watch your show on Spotify. And so that is a feature that is available on Spotify. And so what it does is if you host on Spotify, you upload the video file, it will distribute on Spotify as video, and then everywhere else it will distribute the audio only file. Okay? So you can't watch a podcast on Apple. You would only listen to it, right? But you can watch it on Spotify because they are competing, like I said before, they're competing heavily with YouTube. All right, so I am going to go through a few of the most common or most popular podcast hosting sites, giving you a little bit of pro and cons, and then tell you my experience with the ones that I've used. Again, I have used Google Gemini to give me a little more information because, again, I haven't used, there's a lot out there. So I haven't used all of them. So I'm just telling you some pros and cons that I've got from Google and then also share the personal experience that I've used for myself and with clients. Okay. So the first one is Spotify for Creators, which used to be called Anchor. That is actually where I started my first podcast, The American Dream in the Eyes of Immigrants. It was through Anchor, and then it became Spotify for podcasters, and then it became Spotify for creators. So yes, it's 100% free. There's unlimited storage. It's very user friendly. And they have an integration, obviously, with Spotify where people can listen to the podcast, right? One of the things that I kept hearing when I was hosting with Spotify was like, oh, their analytics is not accurate, it's not that good. And I was like, well, my analytics is good. I don't know what they're talking about. But now that I no longer host on Spotify, I definitely see what everybody was talking about. So according to Google, it is not IAB certified analytics. And so that's what makes their analytics not so reliable, I guess. Yeah, not so reliable, right? So that is one of the cons with Spotify because it has a limited third-party distribution control. Again, this is all back-end stuff that goes into podcasting, but that is something to keep in mind. So if you definitely want to have the most accurate analytics, which is your downloads, how many people are listening, where they're listening from, that is a limitation with Spotify. Okay, the next one is Podbean. So Pro. It has an excellent free tier. Oh, okay. So there you go. There's another one that's free. So it has an excellent free tier. So it gives you 5 hours of storage per month. It has strong monetization options and it is easy to build a podcast website. Oh, so that's good because that is definitely a point that I do make in my blog post why your podcast needs a website. So there you go. Podbean has that. So one of the cons that Google says is that the free tier has bandwidth/storage limit. So I guess because it only gives you the 5 hour limit on the free tier. Okay, next we have Buzzsprout, which is actually where I host this podcast. And one of the pros about Buzzsprout, it is widely considered the easiest paid platform to use, exceptional customer service. They have features like magic mastering for sound quality, and they do have IAB certified analytics. So the analytics are reliable. So they are true. One of the cons is the pricing is based on upload time per month, so 3 hours per month, for example. And so it can feel restrictive for long form shows. And you can only have one podcast per plan. Okay, so I first used Buzzsprout with a client where I was the podcast manager and I was managing two different shows. They were both on Buzzsprout, so I had to listen to the episodes to make sure that everything was good. And then I would upload the episode and upload the show notes and things like that. And I found Buzzsprout to be so easy to use. Again, because I was only used to Spotify and I was able to navigate perfectly easy without anyone showing me. It was super easy to use. Now that I launched my second podcast with Buzzsprout, I realized how easy it is to get the distribution from your hosting sites to the where people are going to listen to, right? So it was literally a click of a button. So when you upload, or sorry, when you register your podcast on Buzzsprout, it gives you the option with a click of a button to distribute to Apple, to Spotify, to YouTube, to like I'm telling you, there's like a whole list of things. iHeartRadio, literally with a click of a button. When I was with Spotify and I wanted to distribute my podcast to the listening platforms, I remember literally having to have to go to each website. So I had to go to Apple, sign in, upload my RSS feed, and then have them submit it, right? And then say, and well, I didn't have to do that with Spotify because it's together. But like for iHeartMedia, I had to go to the iHeartMedia website and then I had to log in and upload my RSS feed. And then I had to do that with Amazon Music. Go to Amazon Music, sign in, upload my RSS feed. So I had to do that with each platform that I wanted my podcast to be able to be listened on. Now, I will say you only have to do that once. That's only once in the very beginning. Once your RSS feed is already in those platforms, then every single time you upload an episode, it will distribute. However, with Buzzsprout, it was literally a click of a button and it was super fast too. I think by the next day, I had already found my podcast on Apple and Spotify. And I was like, whoa, this was super fast because when I did it with Spotify for my first podcast, it took a few days. And I do remember a follower, she was starting her podcast and, she did her big promotion and it was out there, her big launch, and people were having issues finding her show on Apple, I think it was. And then I remember it was like, okay, this is why you want to do your trailer episode a few weeks before your first episode. So then that gives time for the distribution to happen because there's just a lot of behind the scenes stuff that goes on with podcasting. But with Buzzsprout, I don't know, it was super simple. It was one click of a button. So I definitely recommend Buzzsprout. But again, I always tell clients, please do your research, see what each podcast hosting site has available, what you need. Now, if you do want to use Buzzsprout, I do have a referral link that you can use. It's in the show notes and the show description. And I believe it gives me a $20 credit and it gives you a $20 credit. I think that's what it is. But I'm not telling you to use Buzzsprout. I'm just telling you that I have a referral link and I'm just telling you my experience. Okay. Okay. All right. Simplecast. Simplecast is a high-end professional focus, highly respected for its advanced IAB certified analytics. So Google says it is perfect for seeking sponsors and collaborative team features. One of the cons is that it's more expensive than beginner host and there's no free tier. Okay. So Simplecast, I had an experience with a client that I was helping her edit her podcast episode and she had Simplecast. And again, I did find it very user friendly. I didn't need any like training or anything like that to figure out like where to upload the episodes and things like that. I love that Simplecast already has the previous number, episode number that you uploaded, so you don't have to kind of calculate like, oh, what episode number am I on, like I did with Spotify. So I do like that about Simplecast. And again, it was easy to use. Analytics are great. They really break it down. And Simplecast, so I used it with one client for her editing. And now my first podcast, The American Dream and the Eyes of Immigrants, is actually hosted on Simplecast because it is part of a network, meaning that I have ads on my podcast. And with that network, they require everyone to be hosted on Simplecast. So now I upload my own episodes on there. And again, super easy to use. I love the analytics. I love how it breaks it down. And it's in real time too. So it tells you, like, oh, updated like 5 minutes ago or something like that. But yes, definitely recommend Simplecast. Definitely it is, professional, perfect for seeking sponsors. Or if you want to start, Buzzsprout and then move to Simplecast once you're ready for sponsors, you can go ahead and do that as well. But that has been my experience with Simplecast. Really good experience. I like it. All right. Next, we have Libsyn. So Libsyn is actually the OG. Okay, it is the original host of podcast hosting sites. It started in 2004. So it's been out there for 20 plus years. It is incredibly reliable, IAB certified with analytics. So your analytics will be legit. But one of the cons that Google is telling me here is that the interface is sometimes considered less modern or intuitive than Buzzsprout slash Simplecast. Pricing is based on monthly storage. Okay. I have not used Libsyn. When I did one of my podcasting internships, one of the hosts did use Libsyn. And the reason why she said she used Libsyn is because it's the OG podcasting host. So it's been around since the beginning of time of podcasting. So she trusted it. So if you want to use Libsyn, check it out, check out their features. It's the OG, okay? Okay. All right. Last we have Acast. Not the last podcast hosting site, is just the last one that I'm going to talk about because again, there's so many out there. Do your research. Yeah. So Acast is a strong focus on monetization. So like ad sales, subscriptions, even for smaller shows. Great for professional networks. The con is higher cost if you're utilizing all the monetization features. Sometimes it can get complex for beginners. Um, I have no experience with Acast. I haven't had any clients that I have used Acast, so I can't give you any personal experiences on it. So again, I just highly suggest to do your research on all of them and see which one you want to start with. Obviously, a lot of people start with Spotify for Creators first because it's free. And since, sometimes people don't know how long they're going to be podcasting for or if they're actually going to stick, with it, they start off with Spotify and then eventually they'll move to another one. So, again, definitely do your research and see which one works best for you. So, again, we have Spotify for Creators, Podbean, Buzzsprout, Simplecast, Libsyn, and Acast. All right. So the key differences in them is some hosts are IAB certified, so they have, legit monetization, or sorry, they have legit analytics, so downloads and things like that. Um, a lot of them have a price model, like mentioned, so time-based like Buzzsprout, or storage-based like Libsyn, or download-based like Simplecast. And then they all have different monetization options. So dynamic ad insertion like Acast, Podbean, and Simplecast, or affiliate marketing like Buzzsprout. Like I said, I have that referral link if you want to do with Buzzsprout. All right. So that is my deep dive into podcast hosting, the different ones that are out there, doing your research. The hosting site doesn't really matter as much as your content, right? They all do the same thing. They're all going to distribute your episodes to where people can listen to, right? Just check out the features, see what you need. Think back, like I said, step one, what is your vision with your podcast? What is your goal with your podcast? What are you trying to achieve, right? And see which podcast hosting site falls into that. We dove deep into podcast hosting site, what it is, the different ones that are out there, pros and cons. And yeah, so let me know which one you're going to decide to go with. This again, is a deep dive into week 3 of the voice method, which is the I or implement. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions. And I will see you next week. Con mucho amor, your coach, Heidi.
Thank you for listening to Mommy Podcast.